On Christmas Eve, we'd been singing carols. The Germans had been doing the same. Eventually, a German shouted, "Tomorrow you no shoot, we no shoot." The morning came and we didn't shoot you. Then they didn't shoot.
What you just heard was a quote from an English soldier that we found in a remarkable book by Anthony Richards. Was he describing the end of World War I? Sadly, no. But it was still something. Just for one day, opposing troops laid down their arms, left their trenches, and celebrated with each other. Not as soldiers, but as fellow men. On today's show, we're talking about the much mythologized, absolutely true story of the World War I Christmas truce of 1914.
We choose to go to the moon.
Right now, you like me.
Practice? We're talking about practice, man.
Welcome to 5 Minute Trivia, where we're making the world smarter 5 minutes at a time. I'm your host, R.M. Zuberi. Today's show is the conclusion of our 3-part miniseries about World War I, but we're not talking about politicians and military leaders ending the war. We are talking about the common men who made up the ranks of soldiers and decided, just for a day, to stop fighting. In the fall of 1914, the war was just getting started. Everyone thought this would be a quick affair. Austria-Hungary would take care of Serbia, Germany would make quick work of France, and everyone would be home by Christmas. But that is not what happened, especially on the Western Front. Last week, we talked about the Battle of the Marne, which had over 2 million troops and more than 500,000 casualties. Battles that followed were just as bad. The cost of victory was horrific, and defeat was even worse. The First Battle of Aisne, 300,000 casualties. The First Battle of Ypres, 245,000. That battle in Belgium also marked the beginning of trench warfare. Both sides dug opposing trenches along the front, protected from each other by a middle area lined with barbed wire called no man's land. By October of 1914, remember, this is just a month after the war started, the whole front in Belgium and France had solidified into nearly stationary lines of trenches that would come to define the war in Europe. This happened because advances in artillery had rendered the old style of battle extinct. It was no longer a chess match between opposing generals on hills directing movements and cannons and flanking maneuvers. Now there were machine guns that could spit out bullets faster than anyone could possibly move. To show up with a line of cavalry was to volunteer to be slaughtered. So, no one moved. Territory was basically gained and lost in inches. The trenches themselves could be pretty elaborate. The German trenches were typically dug 3 stories down and reinforced with concrete. Even though they developed some creature comforts like ventilated dugouts and sleeping quarters, life in those trenches was brutal. There was the ever-present threat of artillery fire, poison gas, and infection. Before it became kiddie slang for imaginary germs, the term cooties actually originated from World War I trench slang for the infestations they would get from the lice that proliferated in these trenches. By the time that first Christmas came along, troops all across the front were terrified, cold, sick, and far from home. Pope Benedict XV tried to arrange an official truce between nations, asking that the guns may fall silent, at least upon the night the angels sang. But that failed because the singing of angels is apparently nothing compared to the sound of gunfire. So, without official orders, and sometimes in violation of them, soldiers took matters into their own hands. Troops on both sides of no man's land left their trenches to exchange a friendly word with their enemy. Sometimes gifts were exchanged. In at least a few instances, soccer was played.
Suddenly a Tommy came with a football, kicking and making fun, and then began a football match. We marked the goals with our caps. Teams were quickly established for the match on the frozen mud, and then Fritzies beat the Tommies 3-2.
Another soldier stationed in Belgium described it as a kickabout. Everybody was having a go. There was no score, no tally at all. It was simply a melee. Sounds a bit like the war. As the war dragged on, the truces all but came to an end. After the first Christmas truce, an official general order from Germany warned the soldiers that every approach to the enemy would be punished as treason. The Allied troops didn't quite go that far, but orders not to repeat it were handed down. Some company commanders even took to launching artillery barrages on Christmas Day. Not necessarily because they wanted to kill people, but because they wanted to make so much noise that men on their side couldn't communicate with their counterparts on the other side. As one of the German soldiers put it, we all have wives and children. We're just the same kind of men as you are. And that was the greatest danger of this war. The realization by men on both sides that they were the same, locked into a grim face-off with death through no fault of their own. They were cogs in a machine that didn't even know they existed and couldn't care less when they died. We could dwell forever on the unique awfulness of World War I, the death toll in the tens of millions, the misplaced national pride, the fact that no one seemed to learn anything. Or we can remember that at the bottom, there were people who refused to give up their humanity, if just for a day. And with that, we conclude 5 Minute Trivia's mini-series on World War I. Next week, we're back with our usual grab bag assortment of fascinating facts wrapped inside even more fascinating stories. The string arrangement of We Wish You a Merry Christmas was provided by the exquisitely talented Gregor Quendel, and the festive music you heard at the beginning of the show was composed by Casonika. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week on 5 Minute Trivia.